Boston Celtics have their last roster spot available, and according to Boveda, Marcus Morris is one of the favorites to land with this Celtics team. We'll be exploring that, plus possibility of O'Shea Brissett maybe filling in that last roster spot to retain this championship core. Whatever Brad Stevens, whatever Wick Grusbeck decide to do to build this dynasty, we'll be happy about. But we'll be looking at those two possible guys filling out the roster spot, and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. You guys have been absolutely killing it, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, showing your support. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything revolving around this Celtics team, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as you guys currently have been. And make sure to stay tuned for the update revolving around the surprise live stream tomorrow with a special guest. Should be fun. Without further ado, let's dive into the topic at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I mentioned, Celtics' final roster spot is available, is up for grabs, as the Celtics have just recently signed their 14th roster spot in Xavier Tillman. That's right. If you guys missed that video, go check out that one. We made a video breaking down the Xavier Tillman signing, what that could mean for the Boston Celtics, especially with him taking a veteran minimum contract, maybe being that Horford replacement, maybe taking some of that guaranteed money and learning to be that role. We'll be discussing all of that in that video. Make sure to stay tuned and check it out after you watch this one. As we all know, the Philadelphia 76ers are the favorites to win the Marcus Morris Senior Sweepstakes, according to Bill Veda official, but the Celtics are one of those runners up, as the Celtics could be looking to bring back ex-Boston Celtic in Marcus Morris back to their squad. Now, one thing that I did find funny is that Marcus Morris Muse was the one that tweeted this out. Usually you see it off of, a Hoop Central or a Dunk Central, but it was just funny to see that it got tweeted out by Marcus Morris Muse. As we all know, as we broke down, the Celtics have all these guys tied up to their roster. Currently, it says on this page that they have 13, but that does not show and highlight Baylor Shireman. Baylor Shireman is that 14th guy. The Celtics did select him in the first round. And I do believe that he will be that Svi Mykhailiuk replacement for this Boston Celtics team. So when you ultimately do look at this Boston Celtics offseason and what they've done, they've obviously extended Derrick White and Jayson Tatum on big long-term extensions, brought back Neemias Queta on a multi-year deal, 3-year deal, Luke Kornet on a 1-year deal, signed Xavier Tillman on a veteran minimum contract, and now have one roster spot opening. That is left. Right. One roster spot left for this squad. 14 of the 15 roster spots available. Sam Hauser's team option was picked up. He'll look to get a contract extension, but the Celtics can only acquire one more player. So, with them obviously hinting that the Celtics could get Marcus Morris, what would that look like for the Boston Celtics if they did go out and get a player in Marcus Morris? Well, looking at Marcus Morris's stats, we can see he averaged 6.4 points, 2.7 rebounds on 43% shooting from the field and 40% from three. He's obviously an aging veteran, would take that veteran minimum contract, and could be, another wing scorer for this Celtics team, a guy who could be a pretty solid 3-and-D wing contributor off the bench. Now, we saw Marcus Morris kind of erupt for the Cleveland Cavaliers in Game 5 versus the Boston Celtics, which is kind of ironic due to the fact that the Celtics needed him back in those days versus the LeBron James and Kyrie Irving Cleveland Cavaliers, and they could not have Marcus Morris hit a shot for the life of them back in that series. But oh no, Marcus Morris in his revenge versus the TD Garden, coming back, playing for Cleveland on the opposing team. Of course he's going to shoot lights out in the gym and almost win them a game of, right? That's what always happens with this Boston Celtics team. That's the irony. That's the funniness with this Celtics squad. But Morris has looked and taken a little bit of a step down, obviously, since exiting Boston. Went to Los Angeles, played over there for a little bit, then was traded to Philadelphia in that James Harden deal, then was ultimately traded away from Philadelphia and for some draft capital and was waived, I believe, by the Spurs. Then was rumored to possibly go into the Timberwolves, but then ended up going to the Cavs. Really weird kind of scenario with Morris. I view him as a 3-and-D wing, a little bit older, and necessarily I don't think a role that the Celtics need. They already have Brown, they already have Tatum at that score, and Sam Hauser is basically what Marcus Morris is, just on a more efficient level, more on a level that is a younger contract, more more appealing for the Boston Celtics, but also just in general for the growth of Sam Hauser and for the growth of their team. Having that wing 3-and-D player is already filled. They don't need that necessary added 3-and-D wing player just in case Sam Hauser's not having a great night, because that's what Pritchard, that's what Shireman are there for now, and that ultimately I think helps the Boston Celtics in a lot more ways. That ultimately gets us to the next part, which let me know your thoughts about bringing Marcus Morris into Boston. It's exploring the possibility of looking at another Boston Celtics and bringing in a guy in O'Shea Brissett back. Now, if we want to look at this tweet from Adam Himmelsbach. We can see that obviously Tillman was agreed on a minimum salary and will be back with the Boston Celtics on absolute steal. But also, sources say that O'Shea Brissett is still hoping to find a team that can offer some more playing time, but the door is not fully closed on a Boston return. Ultimately, what I think Boston offered to these players was that they gave them their veteran minimum contract straight up at the front of free agency. They gave it to Luke. They gave the contract that they wanted to work with Neemias ready to go. And then they gave Tillman and Brissett a veteran minimum contract. They said to all four of these guys, we will take you back. You can come back. We will have you back if you want to. If you want to test the market, you want to ultimately go out and see who can get you, pay you more for you more money, go out and do that. They said, okay. Luke Cornett, Neemias Queta obviously came back because they felt that their roles were appreciated in Boston, and Luke necessarily, I think, just wants to win and just wants to have fun. He loves the city. He loves his teammates. He was going to come back regardless. Tillman and Brissett, it's a little bit different. They were only here for, half a season, maybe a full season for Brissett. They are young enough to where they can command a bigger contract, command a bigger role. And ultimately, I think that's what both of these players were looking out and seeking for. We see with Tillman, he obviously came back with the Boston Celtics. I think that's due to the fact that no team was offering him any contract, and with the fact that he knows Kristaps Porziņģis is going to be out for, who knows, a month and a half, 2 months, maybe even 2.5 months of this season. He can have a role behind Al Horford, learning that backup center role, playing alongside Luke Cornett and competing for it. And ultimately, if he does succeed, could cash out and get a big time payday when Al Horford's contract is up the next season in a contract extension. Ultimately, Brissett, I think, brings a different versatility than Marcus Morris brings for the Boston Celtics. I think he brings that offensive rebounding, that tenacious defense, that scrappy playmaking, but also that small ball five look as a lob threat that the Celtics could use again in that front court, in that big man rotation with Kristaps Porziņģis being out. Having guys in Cornett, Tillman, Brissett, Horford, while Porzingis is being out, and even Jordan Walsh just kind of rotating and integrating and just using each other in different roles is huge. Neemias Queta and Jordan Walsh can kind of be those third string guys ultimately if that's what you necessarily need. But having those guys just as insurance, as extra bodies is key, but also trying to utilize those roles is better. Personally, in my opinion, when we look at a guy in O'Shea Brissett as well, we can look at his stats, a little worse than a guy in Marcus Morris, but not really known for being a stat guy, more for being a team player, more for being a contributor on things that don't show up in the stat sheet. 3.7 points, 3 rebounds on average, 44% from the field, and 27% shoot from 3. Like I mentioned, Brissett is 26. He still is a little bit younger, so he still can command some big time minutes and could still command a role on a different team. But as it's looking like in free agency, these teams either are too strapped up the salary cap and they can't make moves, even like the big teams like Miami, Milwaukee, even like the contenders that are trying to make moves that would pry away Brissett. And ultimately, the teams like Detroit, Utah, and all that, they're not looking at these players. They're looking for younger players, ways to shed contracts, to bring on more additional salary to get additional draft capital. So it's looking like kind of O'Shea Brissett, Xavier Tillman are kind of in no man's land, and seemingly are going to have to come back to this Boston Celtics team to kind of ensure a contract and to ensure some playing time at least to kind of maybe even work up their contract status or work up their role to move on from them in the future. Who knows? We saw with Brad Stevens, even though he did trade Delano Banton and did trade away Lamar Stevens away for Xavier Tillman and Jaden Springer, he did do right by those guys in giving them good situations. So if in the case, Xavier Tillman or Luke Cornett or O'Shea Brissett are all to come back, and with Kristaps Porzingis being back, they realize, hey, we're not going to have a role for one of you. We know that one of you wants to play. We'll move you on to a better situation. They could seemingly find a situation for that player, and I guarantee you that Brad would, if one of those players said like, hey, throughout the middle of the season, if that's something that I want, would you move me? I'm sure Brad would ultimately do that for that player. Let me know what you guys think down below. I think that bringing O'Shea Brissett is the better piece for the Boston Celtics to look at. I think he brings you a style of play that the Celtics don't necessarily have, that scrappy 3-and-D wing, that very, very good defender. And ultimately, I think Marcus Morris is just a little too old of a veteran to be bringing back on this Celtics squad, especially when Sam Hauser already has that role, and you just drafted a guy, Baylor Sharman, as well at pick 30, that similarly shares some same qualities of a 3-and-D wing and kind of possesses what could be that Sam Hauser replacement if he does end up leaving next year in free agency. So I think that if the Celtics are to look and bring somebody back with this open roster spot, O'Shea Brissett should be the guy. So ultimately, we'll know in the next coming days what he does decide. So we'll have it to break down for you guys. But let me hear your thoughts. Do you guys like the move possibly getting Marcus Morris? Do you like the move possibly for going for a guy O'Shea Brissett? Drop down your thoughts, drop down your feelings down below in the comment section. Once again, I do appreciate your guys' support. You guys have been absolutely killing it here on Celtics Digest, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button. We just released a Xavier Tillman video going over that reaction. So if you missed that, you want to check that out, go check that out as well. Like I mentioned, tomorrow, live stream, have an update going over our surprise guest that's going to be with us as well. Should be fun, should be exciting. Catch you guys there. The content, even though the Celtics might be looking like they're going to be finishing moves, it's not going to stop. Having weekly live streams coming at you guys. We're going to have videos coming out throughout about the summer league, videos coming about the rest of free agency, videos coming about just the team in general. So we want to make sure you stay up to date on everything revolving around this Boston Celtics team. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. As you guys know, this is the place for you. Again, you guys have been absolutely crushing it since the finals have ended, and I really, really do appreciate all the support you guys have given us. Once again, I'm Bruce Veliz. I'll be signing off on this video of Celtics Digest, where I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics.